Are you a left-wing or left-leaning person that enjoys watching Star Wars Andor? I am. When the show first got announced years ago, my politics weren't nearly as defined or developed as they are now. By about 2018, I considered myself a left-leaning Democrat that was a bit of a sucker for West Wing. Okay, I liked West Wing a lot, I won't lie to you. And that show's obsession with finding common ground with Republicans that have a moment of clarity and decide that the "because we're mean" bill can't be passed before the episode ends with some nice instrumental music in the background. As time passed, major events happened in my country, the United States. COVID, elections, Trump's nonsense, George Floyd and the subsequent protests, and my political views became a lot more clear, even though I admit, even today, I'm still learning and developing my thoughts on the things that make the world spin and the people move. Andor did something really interesting in the first 2 episodes of season 2, and the showrunners have really been doing it since the show first aired back in 2022. They really took a swing at some major aspects of revolutionary movements, and after alluding to it in season 1, they finally showed us an example of leftist infighting, leaderless movements, and how easy any kind of movement can fall apart, collapsing into infighting and chaos if you're not careful. Today I want to talk a little bit about the rebel cell that we were introduced to in the first episodes of Andor Season 2, stranded on an unknown forest planet by the name of... Wait, no, I know that's not what This is obviously going to have spoilers for the first 2 episodes of Andor Season 2, so if you have not seen the first 3 episodes of the season and you would like to remain unspoiled going in, pack your things. You're leaving. Until you watch it, and then after that, please come back and check out the video. Without any further delay, here is the lesson we should all learn from the Maya Pei Brigade. By the events of Andor Season 2, Episodes 1, 2, and 3, the rebellion is widespread but not unified by any stretch. It's only been about a year or so since the Great Ferrix Riot of 5 years before the Battle of Yavin, and while the rebellion by this point is very much a problem that the Galactic Empire is fully aware of and at least most of the leaders are concerned about, these rebels still have a very long and difficult way to go before they can consider themselves a formidable adversary for the likes of Tarkin or Palpatine or Thrawn. Rebel cells are going to need to set aside their differences and disagreements and find some form of common ground at a respectable pace if they're going to make the changes that they all envision. The Maya Pei Brigade is one of those rebel cells with that issue, although they have the unique distinction of being one of the first known rebel cells to argue with, fight, and kill each other just as much as other cells. The Maya Pei Brigade is named after their leader, Maya Pei, who went missing and is believed, at least by some, to be dead following a devastating battle that also took the lives of an additional several dozen members as well as several of their ships. Some of the battle survivors found themselves stranded on this unknown forest world. It's Yavin 4. When Cassian finally arrived on the unknown planet to hand off the TIE Avenger that he had spent the majority of the episode stealing and escaping the Empire with, he was ambushed by the Maya Pei survivors who thought Cassian was an Imperial and, in their wisdom, had him tied up and interrogated. The problem, though, was that the group, who Cassian quickly figured out was the Maya Pei Brigade, argued and interrogated each other almost as much as they did Cassian. And after a series of humorous interactions that made Cassian realize that these young fighters were nowhere near as formidable without their leader, a sudden shootout that broke out between the 2 members of the brigade that couldn't put aside their own differences, eating expired food bars and coconuts, a standoff for the better part of a day, and an attack by giant jungle space hippos. I didn't know Yavin 4 had those. What is going on that world? Andor somehow made his way back to the TIE Avenger in the confusion and left the unknown world that was finally revealed to be the legendary Yavin 4, the future main base for the rebellion at large. This arc has been called filler by more people than I'd like. Critics of the arc within the arc called it boring, a distraction from the more extravagant Mon Mothma storyline, the utterly entertaining scenes involving Krennic giving a briefing on Gorman, and of course Dedra putting Cyril's mother in her place, which I will admit probably is going to end up being an all-time moment in the entire series. But I think this misadventure that Cassian found himself in is just as vital as all of those other storylines. I mentioned at the beginning of this video that the Maya Pei Brigade is one of the first times we got to see what genuine chaos and disorganization looks like in the rebellion. When the leader is nowhere to be found, and there isn't a great chain of command or succession in place because they're, an unorganized rebel cell, you are bound for problems. The childish nature of these brigade members stuck out to me constantly. The way they debate whether something is safe to eat, or how Cassian has had to, while still their prisoner, tell them what they needed to do in a given situation. For the love of God, at one one point they have a Star Wars rock, paper, scissors match to determine who should lead the group. You watch how Cassian or Luthen deals with crises in their own respective high-stress situations, and then you watch the Maya Pei Brigade crumble under their most general inconvenience or dispute. Cassian, Luthen, Clea, and even Saw Gerrera, with all of his volatility and paranoia, are professional resistance fighters that have been doing this for a long time. They have solid and robust communication, there is a chain of command in some form or fashion, and even in times of high risk, they do their best to think quickly and not panic. Go back and watch episode 2 and observe how much more in control Andor is compared to the rest of the brigade. There are moments where Andor even looks more annoyed than fearful, as if he can't believe that his life is in the hands of people who can't collectively decide what day of the week it is, much less who is the leader of the brigade now that Maya Pei is dead. Is she even dead? So what is the lesson that Tony Gilroy and the Andor showrunners want us to learn from this group of rebels? It certainly wasn't filler, and while there are funny moments sprinkled in the arc, I still cannot believe they had a rock, paper, scissors match. A solid laugh was not the primary reason we were shown this storyline. The Maya Pei Brigade, without its leader who is missing and possibly dead, is an unnecessary chaos. A volatile group that has no clear direction or plan. In the episode and a half we had with the brigade, the one thing we are meant to take away from the experience is that when you are this poorly run, when you have this many question marks, the Empire isn't even the most immediate threat. The people you have to worry about when it all goes down, like the Maya Pei Brigade is currently experiencing, are your own. The ISB doesn't need to infiltrate your group to destroy you. If you argue that often and start blasting at each other at the drop of a hat, you'll do that on your own. Is there hope for this particular brigade? Well, we're almost certainly returning to Yavin 4 for obvious reasons, and rebellions are indeed built on hope, something coined by Cassian and reiterated by Jyn Erso on Yavin 4, but I have a feeling this group is pretty much cooked. Not just because they're more or less stranded in a hostile jungle filled with animals that apparently enjoy eating and killing humans, but because none of the Maya Pei Brigade fighters demonstrated any ability to work together. And I'd argue that Cassian, by this point a seasoned rebel, and one who had just finished inspiring a woman to become a rebel collaborator in the first episode, getting the hell out of there instead of trying to convince this group to work together and find a compromise was the strongest sign that there wasn't much else to say about them. To put it plainly, the primary lesson we are to learn from the Maya Pei Brigade's, I guess it's fair to say, downfall, is that you need a plan. You need a leader, a message, and a goal. Sure, you need to fill your ranks with people who are all in on the cause, but you also need to take steps to ensure that they are disciplined enough to stay the course, even in the face of bad luck. Armed resistance and revolution are always ugly and violent. We've established that. It's one of the main things to expect, even with the most buttoned up and prepared movements out there. But if you don't have the steady hand and collected person that can steer your people along, you're asking for an unceremonious end. I hope you all enjoyed this video. If you did, please leave a like and subscribe, as well as hit the bell icon so that you're among the first to see any new content going forward. I'm Mesa Windu. Please continue to care and love for each other in these crazy times we live in. Tune in for more Andor videos in the future, and always remember, the Force will be with you. Always.